All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to more drama. Well, in my humble opinion, I would say this is a reduction in drama, but of course, it's not how it's going to work. I said in my last video, this is the last video I was making until we had an actual document to look at. And guess what? We have an actual document to look at. And people are already up in arms about this. It's like, no. We told you what you were going to do, and you didn't do it, and so we are going to. Guess what, folks? All the vast majority of the people that have been complaining about this OGL 1.1 situation, which is now OGL 1.2, have first of all, most of them have absolutely no idea how copyright law works. Most of them have no idea about how trademarks work, patents, anything like that. And they have some really, just for lack of a better word, stupid understandings and misunderstandings about what the original OGL was and what you theoretically can do with the original OGL that Wizards is trying to address. And now that they've released the OGL 1.2 draft, and this time they've made, well, and here's the fun part. Every single person I see talk about this always goes, well, the first one was the draft. First one was the draft. First one was the draft. Of course it was a draft. It's like, well, it didn't say draft on it. That's because the leak wasn't a real draft of anything. It was a draft of a D&D Beyond article. I will go to my grave saying this. What we saw was the draft of a D&D Beyond article and not a legal document. And because of that, it didn't have the words draft on it because that's not what you do with drafts of articles. You don't put massive draft. Because if you send it to your editor and they don't make massive changes, they can send it directly to whoever is publishing it without having to erase the massive watermark on it. So yes, it was a draft. Stop saying it wasn't a draft. We have no proof of anything. We had more proof of the things that were disproven yesterday than we have of this draft not being a draft. So please, for the love of all that is good in this world, stop that. Doesn't even matter if it was a draft or wasn't a draft. It never came into existence. That document never had any legal standing and will have no legal standing ever in the world. Shut up, please. Now, we actually do have something here. And probably the thing that I kid you not, as soon as I read this, I flicked off my phone and said, fuck you all. Not because I was mad at Wizards of the Coast, but because this is probably the best way they could have done with this. The first thing they mention is we're giving the core D&D mechanics to the community through a Creative Commons license, which means that they are fully in your hands. This is where I've seen a bunch of bad takes from people that don't understand how copyright works. Every time I see is, well, you don't need the OGL because game mechanics aren't copyrightable, and so therefore none of this is necessary, and we can just publish whatever we want. Really? You believe that? Do you think Paizo, with all the money that they have, never thought to just say, screw you? We're just going to publish anything that we want? Do you really think that the tons and tons of third-party publishers, nobody with a legal department ever thought that, well, we can just do this. Why should we jump over all these hoops and have to publish this really ugly licensing agreement in every single product we put? No, let's just do it. You know why? Because you can't, you dipshits! The court case that everyone cites in this effectively put into precedent that something like Monopoly cannot copyright rolling dice and moving spaces on a board. That's what this whole thing is well, you can't copyright rolling dice and moving spaces. That is such a common thing in so many other things that it is not copyrightable. However, that does not mean if you make a tabletop RPG that you cannot copyright anything about how the game plays. Really good example, the fact that a 12 in strength gives you a +1 to your ability score modifier is copyrightable, you dipshits. The entire attribute system. Can they copyright the word strength? No. They can copyright that the definition of strength and that everything is on a 2 to 20 level, and for every 2 points your modifier goes up by all that stuff, 100% copyrightable. It has nothing to do with rolling dice or doing something. That is their unique expression. 100% copyrightable. The fact that 2-weapon fighting uses a bonus action, 100% copyrightable. The fact that the extra action you get in combat is called a bonus action, 100% copyrightable. You want to know why the Essence 20 system doesn't use bonus action? They use the really dumb free action term. Because bonus action is copywritten. Remember, Essence 20 started out as a 5th edition supplement. The Power Rangers role-playing game was supposed to be a 5th edition D&D conversion for Power Rangers. So all the stuff that doesn't make sense in there, that sounds real close to Power Rangers but isn't, all that stuff had to be changed because it's copywritten by Wizards of the Coast. So anyone claiming, well, you don't need the OGL, doesn't know what they're talking about. 100% does not know what they're talking about. I will, again, this will be something I will go to my grave with. These people have made these random things. Like, one of my favorite bad takes about this has been, oh, looks like Wizards of the Coast now owns Star Wars because of KOTOR. Actually, the tabletop RPG system that KOTOR used in its game code to be able to make the game work was already owned by Wizards of the Coast and was not an open game license thing. Wizards of the Coast paid LucasArts, I think it was LucasArts, whoever owned it at the time, because this is before Disney bought them, paid them to use their license to create a tabletop RPG. Wizards already owned it, you morons! And those are the kind of takes that have been happening over and over and over again. So, the new OGL, I think, is the best we're going to get out of this situation. I don't think there are substantial changes they're going to make that are going to make this any better. It does exactly what Wizards of the Coast wanted to do with the original update, which, if you look at the one thing that has stayed in, it's the fact that they want to be able to stop people from publishing what they consider hateful content. Now, do I agree with the idea that they can just go, well, we've decided that your stuff is hateful, so we're not going to allow you to publish it? No, I think that's an incredibly draconian thing that can be used to suppress anyone saying things that you don't want them to. I'm not a huge fan of hate speech laws in general because we have seen them misused over and over and over and over and over again. Fun fact, I speak a little bit of sign language, and watch this, folks. You know what that means? It means okay, you morons. It is in American Sign Language is an official sign, and has been for decades, since as long as American Sign Language has existed, I believe. No, it is not a sign of white supremacy. It's never been a sign of white supremacy. It was a 4chan joke. Hate speech laws can and have been used to demonize people, to punish people. Not a big fan of that. However, that's what Wizards wants to do, and there's really nothing we can do to stop them. We can just hope that they don't decide to use that particular thing to attack people. Other than that, they've gotten rid of everything. There are no royalties in it. There's no financial reporting. There's no license back, which I have a whole different rant about that. You guys want to really see something funny? Look at the terms of service for Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter, they all have the exact same language that everybody freaked out about. Remember when Twitch went and put all of XQCs on DVD and sold them on Amazon? Oh, you don't? That's weird. It's probably because it's illegal, despite the fact that they have the exact same language that you guys claimed Wizards of the Coast could use to do that to all your content. Or you remember that time when YouTube made all those plushies of PewDiePie and sold like 1 million versions? No! Because it's illegal, despite the fact that YouTube has the exact same license back language. The license back language has always 100% been in there to prevent people from suing them because, well, I had that idea like 3 months ago, and so you copyrighted me, and so your big $1 million show, I own it now. Because that happens constantly in the entertainment industry. Like every big movie has like 400 copyright lawsuits where they're like, oh no, I actually created this and I submitted a script to you guys back in like 1992. And then, 17 years later, you made a movie that's basically my script. But we never read your script. But I sent it to you, and that means you had it. That means I own it. It's always what it's been there. Every other big company uses the exact same language. Like I said, go look in the terms of service. It's in every single one of them. So anyway, so there's no license back. There's no registration. There's no distinction between commercial and non-commercial. Nothing will impact any content you have published under the OGL 1.0 alpha. Nothing that has already been published is going to be touched. It is official. It is confirmed. Everyone that was claiming that, well, this means that they can force you to give them money for stuff you already sold, that was never something that could happen. Again, people that don't understand how contracts work kept saying, well, if they revoke this, that means that they can retroactively. No, contract law doesn't work like that. It has never worked like that. Seriously, all these 99% of the takes on there are just complete fabrications from nothing. And now they've officially stated it just for the people in the back that didn't quite understand. Okay, that never was possible. But okay, if you want us to specifically say, we're also going to say that you can't harvest unicorns for their fur. Unicorns don't exist, but we're gonna specifically put that in here because apparently people are worried about that. They finish off that will always be licensed under OGL 1.0. Your stuff is your stuff. I have the OGL 1.2, but the big thing that I really like about this was the first thing that they mention. So it says we're doing two things. First thing that they mention, we're giving the core mechanics to the community through a Creative Commons license. This is a massively big deal. Open Game License was great. Don't get me wrong. Open Games License was phenomenal. The new OGL 1.2, I think, is as good as we're going to get. The 1.1 alpha was, or the 1.1a, was not a perfect contract in any way, shape, or form. It was written 23 years ago. In 23 years, laws have changed. Everyone that's upset with all the DMCA nonsense, the reason the DMCA nonsense happens the way it does is because the law was written in the 90s. And it badly needs to be updated to something new. Same thing is true about the OGL 1.1a. It has to be updated. 100%. It has to be updated. It can't. And in order for it to be updated, the idea that, well, you can never deauthorize it. Well, that's going to be decided in court. 100% is going to be decided in court because there's probably going to be at least one or two people that are going to try to say, no, I'm going to continue publishing over the 101A so that I don't have to, I can publish my Nazi content, or I can publish my content that, says that there's only two genders, or whatever else they want to publish that they wouldn't be able to, which again, that's really the only things you're not going to be able to do with 1.2, is publish stuff that Wizards says is hate speech. Whatever. And it's going to be decided in court. But the justification that Wizards of the Coast gives is... they have one that specifically says deauthorizing the OGL 1.1a. We know it's a big concern. The Creative Commons license and the open terms of 1.2 are intended to help with that. One key reason why we have to deauthorize. We can't use the protective options of 1.2 if someone can just choose to publish harmful, discriminatory, or illegal content under 1.0a. And again, any content you have already published under 1.0a will still always be licensed under 1.0a. So their justification, technically, if somebody wanted to publish things that Wizards wants to stop them from publishing, as long as 1.0a exists and is considered an authorized copy, they can. And according to this, whether you want to believe them or not is up to you, but according to this, that is the main goal of this, is they want to be able to stop people from publishing things that they don't like. And from a marketing perspective and from a business perspective, that is actually a really, really essential thing. The idea that people can publish stuff that is associated with your brand and you have no control over that is a massive, massive bad thing. Because it allows someone else control over your image, and your image is one of the most important aspects of running a successful business. You have to cultivate your image the exact way you want to. All of your marketing is built around cultivating a particular image. I've actually had conversations with a few other friends recently about other stuff, where we talked about the idea of business culture, the idea of a culture statement. What that is meant to do is to create an internal image of your business, what the employees and all the people that work for you view as your business. Business image is extremely important. And so the fact that there's nothing in the original one that allows them to go, no, we don't want to be associated with that. We don't want our name associated with that. We don't want the words Dungeons and Dragons associated with that. Under the 1.0a, there's nothing they can do about it. They simply have to sit back and take it. So they learn their lesson. They're putting something in there. Now, as I've said already before, I'm not a huge fan of specific things that talk about hateful or discriminatory, whatever that word is. I can't say it right now. Content, because again, I have seen it used against people. One of my absolute favorite ones is I have gotten yelled at for using the term disabled, because some activists consider the word disabled to be a negative term. It's not. It is what I am. I'm 100% permanently and totally disabled. Disabled has never been a derogatory term in the disabled community. It's what we are. But activists who are not disabled have decided that it is a derogatory term because it makes them feel bad. Not us, them. And so they came up with the term differently abled. Which, by the way, if you ever call me differently abled, I will flip you off. It is the most derogatory, insulting, belittling comment I have ever heard in my life. I'm not differently abled. I am disabled. There are things about me physically and mentally that prevent me from doing the things I want to do. That is a disability. Doesn't mean that I'm differently able, that I can do them in different ways. No, I can't, because I'm disabled. So anyway, if what they're saying here is true, which I have no reason to doubt, because throughout all this, and this is another thing, I have another friend whom shall remain nameless, but if you watch my content, what are you doing with your life? You have much better things to do than watch my content, but you know who you are. Mention that, well, they never denied this thing, and so obviously that means that thing was true because they denied these other things. No, it wasn't. Here's a really easy way to understand this. There were outright blatant lies from trusted insiders that were verified that said there was going to be no OGL for 1D&D. Those are lies. Well, they never did it. No, they did deny it. So what they did is they denied it, and then 3 weeks later, this leak came out with a bunch of misleading and outright false statements attached to it. And so they didn't say anything because the last time they said something, they basically told journalists that if you lie about us, we will tell you things that we don't want to talk about yet because they're not done. Sure enough, exactly the same thing happens. So they take a little bit of time and then they finally go, hey, guess what? What they're saying is not true. What they got a hold of was a draft. It was never going to be complete. Most of the stuff they're saying about it is not true. When we do release something, we will have more information. But based on the feedback and everything, we're getting rid of these few things that were in our original draft because obviously they're not going to work. What happens next? We start getting things like AIDMs and $30 D&D Beyond subscriptions, and the OGL 2.0 was leaked the day they made their comment about, hey, the thing was a draft. So you want to know why they didn't deny these other things? Because they were working on the OGL 1.2, and every time they deny something, more crazy rumors show up. They are training people to lie about them to get the information they want. That is one of the reasons you generally don't respond to blatantly false information, especially by telling them your plans like they did in December. Because all that does is go, hey, if we can't get the information through our sources, all we have to do is lie about them, and then they'll give us all the information we want anyway, and while we're lying, we will make shit tons of money as everyone clicks on the lies and thinks that we're actually telling the truth. This is brilliant. So, you want to know how I know what was important and what was not important to them? Because this is how business negotiations work. When you start a business negotiation, you put everything on the table that you want. And then as soon as you get pushback, you start seeing the things that you're like, this would be nice, but it's not happening. What was the first thing they dropped? Royalties. Now they've gotten rid of licensing requirements and literally all the stuff that everyone was freaking out about that was going to destroy third-party markets, all of it is gone. 100%. Everything that was going to destroy the third-party market is not in the OGL 1.2. The OGL 1.2, the only thing that has changed is, well, you can't say stuff that we think is hate speech. That's it. That's the only major change. But we now have the vast majority of the rules of the game itself are now in Creative Commons. And the thing about Creative Commons compared to the OGL, Creative Commons is written in a way that the Creative Commons license gets updated. The one that they used here is the 4.0. I've released, I actually don't know if I've released anything Creative Commons. I've looked into it though. I've had a couple things that I thought about releasing Creative Commons. The last time I seriously looked at a Creative Commons license was the 3.0 version. And I'm familiar with the 2.0 and the 1.0 version because all those versions still exist. Creative Commons specifically has things in there that says that we can update this, but if you want to change, you can change your Creative Commons license, but the only way you can change something that has already been published under a Creative Commons license is if you make it more open. So Creative Commons has a bunch of different licenses. You have just the blanket Creative Commons, which is you can use this for whatever you want. Go for it. Then you have the non-commercial. You can use it for anything you want, but you're not allowed to use it to make money. Then you have the attribution, which is you can use it for whatever you want, but you're required by law to attribute it to me. You have to specifically say, hey, I made this. You can put whatever else you want in it, but anything that I made, you have to specifically mention that it's mine. And then you can have combinations, like you can have non-commercial attribution, and stuff like that. So Creative Commons is a really, really interesting thing. So if you publish something under Creative Commons like 2.0 and you made it just Creative Commons, but people are just making shit tons of money off of it and you're making nothing because they used all your hard work, but they added, they added fluffy bunnies to it, and everybody loves fluffy bunnies. You can't go back and go, okay, well now I'm just going to say non-commercial. So you can do whatever you want, but you're not allowed to make money off of it. You can update the license, but because the standard Creative Commons is as open as it can be, you can never change it to, well, I want it to be if you started with non-commercial, and again, tons of people have been making stuff, but a lot of them are going, I would make more stuff from this, but I gotta eat. And if I make OGL content, I can sell it. And if I make stuff based on this, which is really fun, and I added cute bunnies to it, and everybody loves cute bunnies, but I can't make any money off of it. Someone that originally released under Creative Commons non-commercial can go, okay, well then yeah, you can go Creative Commons. You can go Creative Commons everything. Just go for it. Make money off of this. I'm releasing that aspect to it. So Creative Commons is specifically made so that if you do change the license, it can only be changed in a way that makes it easier for people to use, not harder. The specific Creative Commons license they use is Creative Commons Attribution 4.0, which means you can make money off of it, you can change it, you can do whatever you want, you just have to say that Wizards made it first. It is the second most open version of the Creative Commons. This is a massive thing. But you can't copyright games system. That's what the people on the YouTube said to me, and that means that's the real thing. So none of that matters. As I've already said, yes, you can. You can't copyright dice rolling. You can copyright a strength of 13, means you get a +1 to your ability modifier. You can copyright the idea that a proficiency bonus grows as your level. All of that is copyrightable. And guess what is included in the Creative Commons portion of the OGL 1.2? Well, that's what I want to do. I actually want to go through the OGL 1.2. Like I said, it's a non-starter. It's exactly what I expected it to be. They do specifically state not only in the press release, but also in the document itself, that this only applies to tabletop content and virtual tabletop content. So videos, live plays, anything like that, none of that is covered under the OGL. By the way, it was never covered under the OGL. This is another thing of them literally just putting stuff in there, like, you know what, you can't use rhinoceroses to fly to the moon. Well, you normally can't do it. Yeah, but we're going to make sure, because people were saying that they was going to use rhinoceroses to fly to the moon, and we think that's just bad for the rhinoceroses because they can't fly, and I don't know why someone want to do it, but we're going to put that in the rules. You can't use rhinoceroses to fly to the moon. Again, it was already that way, but they've decided to clarify, which again is not an uncommon thing in contracts. I have had contracts that I have signed that have useless text in them, and the reason that that's put in, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand. If you bring a frivolous lawsuit against a company, it still costs them money. That's why there are laws called SLAPP laws, and I can't remember what the acronym actually stands for, but SLAPP laws are basically if somebody sues you and your defense is going to be, this is covered under the First Amendment, this is free speech. And I think it's strategic lawsuits against something. I can't remember what the P is. It prevents the lawsuit from actually costing you any money because it gets dismissed instantly. The thing that makes lawsuits so expensive, like back when I was in college years ago now, One, and this number is probably significantly higher now, but one of the things that I learned in my first business law class was the average discrimination lawsuit cost $120,000 before going to trial. Well, what's that? So the way that lawsuits work is you file the lawsuit, and once it is accepted by whatever court you have filed it in, you can start doing what's called discovery. Discovery is an interesting part of our legal system. I think most other like modern what's called adversarial legal systems, which adversarial doesn't mean that, it's, the government's trying to kill you. Adversarial means that there are two different parties that are arguing against each other. And the reason we use an adversarial process is it is intended that by having someone arguing for and someone arguing against, we have the best chance of coming to what the actual truth is. Because the people that are arguing against it are always going to come up with every single argument they can to disprove it. And the people that are arguing for it are going to do everything they can to argue and bring up all the information for it. And if you had just one person that was just looking for their own personal bias, could be like, well, I see all this information, but this is the information that makes the most sense to me, and we won't get the full picture. That is the intent behind our adversarial process. Whether or not that works, it doesn't. But that's the intent. So part of the adversarial process is this discovery phase. You are required, no matter which side you are on, you are required to give the opposition everything you have that might relate to the case. Whether it's good for you or bad for you, you are required by law to give everything. Well, in order to do that, people have to find everything. They have to copy everything. And all the time spent looking for all the different documents for discovery, all the money it costs to make paper copies of them, all of that is part of discovery. And until you win or lose the case, you are paying for your own discovery. If your lawyer has to go 7 times to the other people's house and go, hey, I need you to give me this stuff, and they just keep, putting it off and stuff like that, every minute your lawyer is doing something for you, you are paying them. Generally, like cheap lawyers charge $100 to $200 an hour. Good lawyers can charge thousands of dollars an hour. Now, in addition to that, there's these things called depositions. If you have any witnesses or other things like that, they can depose the witness before the trial so that they're not surprised by what they're going to say and things like that. And depositions are part of evidence, so they're part of the discovery aspect. And while your lawyer is questioning your witnesses or whatever or the people that are getting deposed, you are paying for it. You are also paying while their lawyer is doing it, because your lawyer has to be there, or at least has to have some sort of connection to it. At least that's my understanding. So that's why lawsuits cost so much. Specifically, deposition, to my understanding, is the most expensive part of the pre-trial of any lawsuit. And unless there are very specific circumstances, you generally have to get through discovery before you're going to be allowed to say, hey, they don't have a case. Can we just dismiss this case? And that also doesn't mean, like, there's a good possibility that even if you win the case, you're still on the hook for all the money you had to pay during discovery. So the reason that these kind of useless things get put into contracts is specifically so that when they make an argument that goes, well, I tried flying a rhinoceros to the moon and it didn't work, and I'm going to sue you over it. It's like, we said in our contract you can't use a rhinoceros to fly to a moon. So at that point, the judge could instantly go, no, we're not even going to let you get to discovery. We're not going to let you finish filing this lawsuit. We're just going to dismiss it outright. So that's why they put stuff in here. That's why they have some of these really stupid things like, this only applies to tabletop games. It always only applied to tabletop games. Wizards of the Coast has a fan policy that applies to live streams and things like that. The DMs Guild has never been under the OGL. You have Wizards of the Coast has a specific agreement with One Bookshelf, who's the company that runs the DMs Guild and Drive Through RPG, which is the other site that the DMs Guild is under. Stuff that was published on the DMs Guild, like the stuff I published, I have never been an OGL author. I've never published anything under the OGL. All of my publishing was done through the DMs Guild, and I'm a platinum bestseller on there. Thank you very much. So, yeah, they put a lot of stuff in here that's simply designed to stop complaints and stop arguments before they start. There's no reason to have them in there from a legal standpoint, but they put them in there on purpose. One thing people are getting upset about, the Section 5 in here, you control your content. You must clearly indicate that your licensed work contains our licensed content under this license, either by including the full text of this license in your licensed work or by applying the Creator Products badge in compliance with then current style guidelines. And then you may permit the use of your content on any terms you want. However, if any license you offer to your licensed work is different from the terms of this license, you must include the licensed work, the attribution for our licensed content, blah, 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 blah. So basically, it's saying that you have to say that this is our content by either putting this entire thing in there or by using this badge. Wizards of the Coast mentioned that this is irrevocable, but there's a section at the bottom that they can change things. I'm trying to see where it is. Modification determination, section 7. They specifically in 7A says, we may only modify the provisions of this license identifying the attribution required under section 5 and the notice provision of section 9A. We may not modify any other provisions. So people saw that there's a section that says modification or termination. And they're like, oh, you said it's irrevocable, but you're just going to say you modified it. No, they specifically put in here, the only things we can change about this are how you say it's how you show that it's an OGL product and how we contact you if there's something wrong. Those are the only two things they can change. Everything in here is set in stone, cannot be changed, cannot be revoked. This is eternal. You guys got everything you wanted, you morons. So anyway, let's talk about what the actual Creative Commons things are. I have to look. So, on the top of it, on effectively page 2, I guess. Many ways to create. The core D&D mechanics, which are located on pages 56 to 104, 254 to 260, and 358 to 359 of this system's reference document 5.1, but not examples used on those pages, are licensed to you under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International, so CC BY 4.0. This means that Wizard is not placing any limitations at all on how you use that content. So anything from pages 56 to 104, 254 to 260, and 358 to 359, you can do whatever the hell you want with. So what specifically are on those pages? Well, I have SOD 5.1 here. Page 56 is beyond first level. It has the character advancement table. So the experience points needed to get to every level is Creative Commons. That is copyrightable. They are allowed to say it takes 300 experience points to get to level 2. They're allowed to copyright that. It is no longer copywritten entirely by them. It is released under Creative Commons. It is almost public domain. It's not really, but it's Creative Commons. Proficiency bonus is now Creative Commons. That is a copyrightable thing. They cannot copyright rolling a d20 and adding a number to it. They can copyright that proficiency bonus is this specific number and it goes up at this rate based on what level you are. Multiclassing is Creative Commons. So the way that you multiclass in 5th edition is Creative Commons. The prerequisites for the various multiclasses are Creative Commons. The classes themselves are not covered on the Creative Commons license, but they will be covered on the OGL, so that's not as big a deal. But the specific idea of multi-classing prerequisites and how they're specifically referenced and things like that, the idea of having an ability score minimum, all of those things are Creative Commons. Experience points, hit points, and hit dice, Creative Commons. Proficiency bonus, Creative Commons. Proficiencies, the proficiency system, and the word proficiencies, meaning that all this stuff works. Again, you ever wonder why everyone else uses trained or all these other things? Because that particular use of the word proficiency is copywritten. Now, all of that stuff and the specific proficiencies for the classes are Creative Commons. Class features. Channel Divinity is now Creative Commons. Extra Attack, which 100% was copyrightable. The fact that you can say, well, you can take the attack action, and that means you can take multiple attacks in a single action, that aspect was copywritten. It is no longer. Unarmored Defense, the term itself is Creative Commons. Spellcasting is Creative Commons. The multi-classing, the spells known and prepared, the Vancian magic system that has been a part of Dungeons & Dragons since its beginning, that is now Creative Commons. You can use, because it's Creative Commons, you don't have to use it in its entirety. It's use whatever you want from it. It's Creative Commons. So you now can use the 9-level spellcasting system. They have the table for how many spells you get per level. All of that is Creative Commons now. Spell slots are Creative Commons. Paxed Magic is Creative Commons. The alignment grid is Creative Commons. All the different languages apparently are now Creative Commons. So if you wanted to use like Demons Speak Abyssal, again, that was lore. That was copywritten. It is now open for use under the Creative Commons. Or I guess they say specific examples aren't covered, so I guess that could be. But the actual language itself, Abyssal, is listed here. So they could argue that the typical speaker's aspect of it is an example. But standard language are official. They're Creative Commons. The inspiration system is Creative Commons. It's right on page 59. So now if you want to use the inspiration system and call it inspiration in your games, you can, as long as you use the Creative Commons attribution. One other thing, if I remember correctly, one other thing about Creative Commons, I believe, is that... no, I don't think that's it. I'm not going to say that because I was about to say something and I'm not 100% certain. Read up on Creative Commons. There are some more intricacies to it that I'm not as familiar with. Read up on Creative Commons. Gaining inspiration, Creative Commons. Using inspiration, Creative Commons. Backgrounds. How backgrounds are set up is entirely Creative Commons. That is a major aspect that is 100% copyrightable, folks. Of the game, backgrounds were copywritten. They are now Creative Commons. The Acolyte background is also Creative Commons. They only have one background. And again, I wonder if they would try, because they don't specifically call this an example. They just say the Acolyte. So I don't know, and this is another thing where this would be decided in court if they tried to say that, well, no, the Acolyte is ours. I don't think they would, because again, if they were trying to weasel their way out of it, they would have said example backgrounds like they have said in the 1D&D playtest, and they didn't. So I'm going to say Acolyte is Creative Commons. Suggested characteristics. The equipment and how all the equipment works, Creative Commons. Standard exchange rate, copper, silver, electrum, gold, platinum, all Creative Commons. The way that you sell treasure and stuff like that in 5th edition, Creative Commons. The armor system, armor proficiency, armor class, all of that is now Creative Commons. They have light, medium, and heavy armor and all the definitions of how that works. All that stuff, 100% copyrightable. All that stuff, Creative Commons now. The actual armor list from the player's handbook, You know, where it says light armor, padded is 11 plus dex modifier, has disadvantage on stealth, weight 8 pounds. All of that is Creative Commons. If you don't want to have to create your own armor system, you can put all of this in here and use it. If you don't want to create your own armor class system, you can use this completely. It's Creative Commons. You're getting into and out of armor, Creative Commons. Weapon proficiencies and the properties of weapons, like the finesse property, is Creative Commons. Again, finesse, 100% copyrightable. You can't copyright adding a number to a roll. You can copyright, well, this particular weapon can use your dexterity modifier because it is a finesse weapon. 100% copyrightable. Now it's Creative Commons. So this section is basically the entire equipment section from the SRD is all Creative Commons. So there's tools, mounts and vehicle, expenses, your lifestyle expenses, all that stuff, 100% Creative Commons now. The different lifestyles, wretched, squalid, poor, and how they relate to how much money it costs for your lifestyle expenses per day, all Creative Commons. Food, drink, lodging, all Creative Commons. Spellcasting services, all Creative Commons. Feats, the feat system in itself is copyrightable. Not anymore. They have the feats here. They have only one feat, the grappler feat. Feats are now Creative Commons. You want to build your own system that uses feats, you can do it with Creative Commons. No OGL required. You can do whatever you want with it. Feats are now part of Creative Commons. Using ability scores, this entire section, this is the core of what makes a D&D-like game, is your 6 ability scores and the fact that it's made on a 1 to, they say 30 here, a 1 to 30 point scale, and every 2 points your modifier increases by 1. The modifier starts at 1 with a -5, goes all the way to 30 with a +10. That is 100% copyrightable. Again, they can't copyright adding a number to a roll. They can't copyright the word strength or the word dexterity, but they can copyright those 6 scores being how you define your character, and the fact that a 24 in strength means you get a +7 to any skill checks that use that. 100% copyrightable. You want to know why other systems don't use this system? It's because it's copyrightable. They haven't been able to. Now they can. The advantage-disadvantage system. My personal favorite aspect of D&D, which has been used constantly. The snag edge system in Essence 20 is advantage-disadvantage. But the terms advantage-disadvantage attached to the idea that you roll twice and take the higher or the lower is copywritten. That's why Essence 20 changed the names. If they didn't have to do that, they wouldn't have. Now, they don't. If they wanted to reprint it, I don't think they should, because I like the edge snag system. I just like that. Not that advantage, disadvantage is wrong, but edge and snag are smaller words. I like smaller words because I stutter. So advantage, disadvantage, Creative Commons. Proficiency bonus, again, 100% copyrightable, Creative Commons. Ability checks, Creative Commons. Contest, Creative Commons. Skills, their entire skill list. You want to know why you don't generally see the same skills? Like you generally don't see RPGs with an Arcana skill, because that's something that D&D has made and used and specifically defined. That's why you have all these other things that will use weird words. Things like stealth. Stealth is so common that, again, there's a stealth skill in Essence 20. That's not. But things like Arcana and a few of these other ones, the terms themselves related to a skill are going to be copyrightable, and their particular definitions and things like that are copywritten. Now you can use them under a Creative Commons attribution license. Passive checks, 100% copyrightable, Creative Commons. And then they have everything about how to use strength checks and everything like that, carrying capacity, all that stuff. The encumbrance variant, which I hate encumbrance, but some people like it. All that's in here. Dex checks, constitutions, saving throws, all that stuff, all Creative Commons now. Time and movement, all Creative Commons. I don't know too many people that would use the way that jumping works in D&D is something that they can copyright now, jumping itself, you know, rolling a check and then the math involved in how that turns into an actual jump and everything. I'm not a huge fan of the 5th edition jumping rules. I think they're dumb. But if you want to use dumb rules, you can. They're Creative Commons now. Vision and light. Things like blind sight, dark vision, true sight, all those copyrightable, all of them Creative Commons. If you want to put blind sight into your game, you can now. If you want to use the darkness, dim light, lightly obscured, heavily obscured, all that stuff is copyrightable. All that stuff is in the Creative Commons. Interacting with objects, again, resting. The short and long rest system is Creative Commons. Again, a short rest taking an hour is a copyrightable thing. A long rest taking 8 hours is a little bit less, because 8 hours is kind of standard over every RPG now. That it would be a really hard sell to get someone to say that a long rest being 8 hours, but a short rest, specifically something called a short rest, taking 1 hour, and the number of short rests that you can have during a day and things like that, and that stuff is all copyrightable. That stuff is all in the Creative Commons. Lifetime expenses, downtime activities, again, you can't really copyright the idea of doing stuff when you're not adventuring, but the specific term downtime activities and the specific activities that they have in here are copyrightable. Now they're all Creative Commons. Order of combat. How combat works in 5th edition D&D and all the names of everything is now Creative Commons. Bonus action is now Creative Commons. You want to know why nobody else uses bonus action? Because they don't want to have to go to court to prove that bonus action is something they're allowed to use. Now they can just use Creative Commons. Easy. Reactions, movements, position, all that stuff. Difficult terrain, being prone. Again, prone you can't, because prone is actually a medical term. And the fun thing about prone is a lot of people misuse what prone is. If I remember correctly, I think prone is face down. Prone position. Yeah, prone is face down. Supine is face up. Yeah, a lot of people, if you get tripped and you fall on your back, it's like, oh, you're prone. Actually, no, you're supine. Yeah, the movement and the way opportunity attacks work all in Creative Commons now. Actions and comment. The various actions you can take. The attack, cast a spell, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, ready. All of those things, which are 100% copyrightable. You can't copyright hiding from an enemy. You can copyright, if you want to take the hide action, you make a dexterity stealth check and attempt to hide. That 100% is copyrightable. It is now under Creative Commons. How you do attacks, rolling nat 1s and nat 20s is all in there. Unseen attackers and stuff like that, like the rules for all that is all in there now. Creative Commons. 2-weapon fighting is Creative Commons. Grappling is Creative Commons. That one, again, grappling is such a broad term that I don't think they could have done anything. But again, the specific of how you get out to escape a grapple and stuff like that, all Creative Commons now. Damage and healing, hit points, damage rolls, damage types. This is another thing, 100% protected by copyright. How acid is specifically described, and the list of damage types. Can you say that they can copyright acid damage? No, but if you don't want to have to come up with your own list of damage types, you can literally copy this list word for word, and except for the examples they have here, dealt by certain undead and spell and a spell such as chill touch. Well, you can't use such as chill touch because that's an example. But everything else in here, if you just want to use their damage types, you can. The resistance and vulnerability system, where resistance you take half, vulnerability you take double. Really, really good system that I really, really like. Creative Commons. Healing, there's no reason. Sorry, healing sucks in 5th edition. Drop it to 0 hit points. Creative Commons. Temporary hit points. Another thing they can 100% copyright. Creative Commons now. You can use the temporary hit point system whenever you want. You just have to attribute it to them. Mounted combat, nobody uses. Underwater combat, nobody understands. Spellcasting, still Creative Commons. The entire spellcasting system, how it works. What is a spell? Spell level, known and prepared spells, spell slots, casting a spell at a higher level, cantrips, rituals, all of it. Verbal, somatic, and material components, all of it is Creative Commons. You never have to touch the OGL to make something using these. 100% you can use the Vancian spell system that is built into D&D and it's always been there. It is now open for anybody to use without doing anything but saying Wizards made it first. You don't have to acknowledge anything other than that fact. You do not have to agree to their terms of service. Nothing. It is all Creative Commons. So yeah, the entire spellcasting system is now here in Creative Commons. And that's where it ends. Page 104 is the end of how spellcasting works. Combining magical effects is the same thing. On 105, which is not included in Creative Commons, is the spell lists. So the spells themselves are not Creative Commons, but the system behind it, if you want to build your own spells, 100% Creative Commons. The next section is 254 to 260. So we're going to go there. That's the wrong page. All right, 254 to 260. So what is on page 254? 254 is monsters. That's right, the stat blocks that you use in D&D, all the different monster types, all monster types, 100% copyrightable. They're allowed to say that elementals, they can't copyright the word elementals, but their particular version of elementals and the fact that it is a creature type and that certain things will affect certain creature types in certain ways, 100% copyrightable, 100% in the Creative Commons now. Every single monster type in 5th edition and its complete description, other than the examples they give of like angels, quattules, and pegasi, that one line is not under Creative Commons, but Celestials is. So you can now make your own D&D 5th edition monsters and not have to use the OGL, because everything about how monsters work is in the Creative Commons. So if you want to just make more monster manuals, you just want to publish everything as monster manuals, you 100% can, because all of that is Creative Commons. You don't have to use the OGL in any way, shape, or form to do that. The proficiency bonus by challenge rating, the challenge rating system itself, which is kind of useless, all of that is Creative Commons now. All the senses, blind sight, dark vision, true sight, tremor sense, all of that Creative Commons. Telepathy is a language, the challenge rating, innate spellcasting, the experience points you get for different challenge ratings is all Creative Commons. The different actions that you can use is all Creative Commons. The like X time a day or recharges after X to Y, that is something that is unique to D&D, where every turn, if anyone's never run a D&D monster, there are certain abilities that'll say recharge 5, 6. What that means is if you use this ability on your next turn, you roll a d6. If you roll a 5 or a 6, when you roll that d6, the ability recharges that turn and you can use it again. Most breath weapons from dragons are roll to recharge. That system, which 100% they can copyright, is now Creative Commons. And then recharge after a short or long rest is Creative Commons. Legendary creatures, another thing that 100% is copyrightable. The idea of legendary creatures and legendary actions and all that stuff, all of that is now Creative Commons. The one thing I don't see in here, though, is legendary resistance. So I'm not sure if I'm just missing it or if specifically legendary resistance isn't specifically listed here. Which again would be something, if somebody made a legendary creature and gave it legendary resistance without using the OGL, that would be something that have to be decided on in court. But everything else about a legendary creature is here, including layer actions. Layer actions, regional effects, all that stuff that make legendary creatures as cool as they are, they're right here. So, again, if all you do is make monster manuals, your monster manuals now, because again, the stuff you've already published is safe under the OGL. But if you wanted to republish it or publish it with additional materials, you could actually remove the OGL completely. If all it is a monster manual, you could remove it completely and just use the Creative Commons attribution license and not have anything to do with the OGL whatsoever. I think MCDM makes monster manual style stuff. They theoretically could re-release all of their old books. They could stop production of all the OGL 1.1a versions of those monster manual things, based on my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, got to put that out there. They could just discontinue selling all of those things and just sell Creative Commons versions of them. It would be 100% legal. They wouldn't have to use the OGL whatsoever, according to my understanding of this, because monster stat blocks effectively are included in the Creative Commons license. You're 100% set. So this is a huge, huge thing. Up until this point, you had to use the OGL to create monster manuals and things like that. You don't have to. Or you could do DM's Guild, which again is its own thing. But MCDM, because I know that they make this stuff, might be able to just use the Creative Commons aspect of it. If they really are vehemently against the idea of an OGL and not being the OGL 1.1a, theoretically, according to my understanding, they could. And if you just want to make monsters, which good on you, I hate making 5th edition monsters, they're a pain in the ass, go for it. You have an awesome thing here. So the final section that is Creative Commons. Where did you go? There did you go. 358 to 359. So what is 358 to 359 in the SRD? I'm glad you asked. 358, top of the page, Appendix PHA, Conditions. All the conditions in 5th edition, which are 100% copyrightable. Claiming that a grappled creature's speed becomes 0 is copyrightable. Can you say that grappling is copyrightable? No, grappling is a sport. But you can, their specific interpretation of what grappling means is 100% copyrightable. It is now Creative Commons. The frightened condition, the charm condition, blind, deafened, invisible, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, restrained, stunned, unconscious, all Creative Commons. There is so much here that you can use. Writing adventures for D&D, you could write entire adventures that do not use the OGL whatsoever. Because all the stuff you need to write an adventure is in here already. Now, I don't know if OGLs were, or if adventures were, because all the adventures I'm used to reading that are published by other people are published through the DM's Guild, which doesn't use OGL. But theoretically, everything you need, you can do. Making new classes. If you want to design a brand new class, you can do it only using Creative Commons. Because all the stuff that you need to be able to build a class, the action system, the action economy, everything is all Creative Commons now. So every single new class that comes out, based on my understanding of this, can be Creative Commons and not use the open game license whatsoever. The only thing you need the open game license for is if you are creating like new subclasses for classes that already exist. Theoretically, my Dragon Knight class, because it is 100% unique to me, and the only stuff it uses from D&D is now Creative Commons. I could, if it wasn't for the fact that I'd published it through the DM's Guild, and I have a very different contract with them, I theoretically could publish the Dragon Knight, or I have a new class that I've been working on. I could publish that entirely through Creative Commons, and not have to worry about not have to worry about sharing profit with the DMs Guild, not have to worry about like something a lot of people don't realize about my DMs Guild stuff. I have an exclusive contract with them. Anything I publish on the DMs Guild is only on the DMs Guild. I'm not allowed to publish it anywhere else. They have an exclusive distribution right to my content. So even with all the stuff in Creative Commons, I could not republish the Dragon Knight off of there without probably talking to a lawyer to figure out exactly what I would need to do. But the new class that I'm designing, I 100% could publish without an OGL. Up until this point, if I wanted to publish a new class, I either had to go through the DMs Guild, which is not OGL, or I had to use the OGL and abide by all its rules. Now I don't. This is a huge thing, guys. I don't understand how people are not talking about this more. Creative Commons is better than any open game license that has ever existed. My video on Monday talked about the Cypher Open System License, I think is what it's called, or something like that. The Cypher OGL, apparently. It is a good license. It's not Creative Commons. And they didn't use Creative Commons on purpose. You give up a shit ton of your rights as a creator by using Creative Commons. And the whole purpose of Creative Commons is to be able to allow people to kind of buck the copyright system. People that don't really like how draconian the copyright system has become, when it was really supposed to be designed to protect creators from exploitation of like big companies, and now it's used by big companies to exploit creators. The Creative Commons movement started because a bunch of people went, you know what, this is really stupid. I'm tired of, you know, copyright laws being used to silence and prevent people from being creative. I just want to create cool stuff and let other people see it. But because of copyright law, I always have to be worried about, you know, a big corporation finding it, tweaking something minor, and then stealing it from me and using it for something that I don't want, like using it to just make shit tons of money while exploiting their customers by forcing them to go through this. Like there are countless examples of people not understanding copyright law and accidentally signing away massive things that have made them lose creative control over stuff. Like the fact that Taylor Swift had to re-record all of her stuff. That's a failure of copyright. The fact that Weird Al said in an interview recently, he sold I think it was My Bologna, which is his parody of My Sharona. He sold it for like $500 to, I think it was Warner. And then a few years later, he wanted to record it for his first album, and he had to pay them $1,000 for the rights to record his own song because he'd sold the rights away to his song for $500. Which at that point he was super happy. He'd never sold a song before, so he was super happy then. So Creative Commons itself was written by lawyers, and I think it was musicians were the people that started it. But I'm not 100% certain on that. But it was written by lawyers and creatives to create a system where you can't just say, well, I'm not going to use the copyright system. Copyright system has been written into law. It affects everything that is created. You don't even have to apply for copyright to apply. Copyright was written specifically, again, in an attempt to protect creators. It was written specifically to state, as soon as something unique is created, it is protected by copyright law. You do not have to apply for it. You don't have to declare it. Nothing. And that was done specifically to avoid exploitation. Well, because of that, you cannot get out of the copyright law system. You just can't. It's impossible. So Creative Commons was created as a way for people that didn't want to deal with copyright but still wanted to protect their stuff from exploitation from major corporations to have a copyright that they could declare that they didn't have to pay for, because registering a copyright costs money. I know, because I've looked into both copywriting and trademarking a few times for various things that I was doing with my YouTube channel. If anyone's wondering if I'm going to try and trademark anything, not anytime soon. But I've looked into it because I had some scares within the past year or two where I saw some stuff that was substantially similar to some of the things that I do, and I was worried. I wasn't so much worried about my stuff. I was worried about someone else copywriting or trademarking like a term that I use, and then trying to sue me out of existence because of it, which wouldn't work because I know trademark law pretty well. But yeah, so that's the whole purpose of the Creative Commons system. But because of that, by declaring something Creative Commons, you prevent big corporations from exploiting it in all but a few instances. But it also gets rid of any control you had over how it gets used in any other way. And so I thought it would be hilarious if Wizards of the Coast signed on to this new orc thing. Please come. I understand it's a hilarious name, but I can only think of organized retail crime. Call it Oracle. I thought it'd be absolutely hilarious for Wizards of the Coast to sign on to that, because it would be kind of a big middle finger to all these people that believed all the lies and everything, and now they've gone one step further, because even Oracle keeps most of the control with the publishers. If you publish under Oracle, you still have massive amounts of control of your product. You publish through Creative Commons, you have extremely limited control. The only thing you have, the only control that you have is attribution or commercialization. And they have already, once this officially gets published, because again, this is still a draft, once this officially gets published, there's nothing they can do. They can never go back on this part of it. Because that's how Creative Commons was written. The only thing they can do is they can go from requiring attribution to not requiring attribution, to where anyone can use this for any reason and they never even have to say we made it. That is the only change they can make to the Creative Commons license, because that's how the Creative Commons license was created. This is a massive deal, folks. I do not understand people going, they're lying, they're lying. No. We have already proven, like, if anyone actually watched my videos instead of going derp or saying, how does it feel to be this wrong? I have been right for the majority of things since my first video about this back in December, when I said, no, they're not getting rid of the OGL. That would be stupid. Guess what? They didn't. No, nothing is going to launch on the 4th. That would be stupid. Guess what? They didn't. No, the 13th, they are not going to just unilaterally declare that this new thing is in effect. No, they wouldn't. That's stupid and illegal. I've said this over and over and over again, and I wanted really badly to talk about like the 2.0 stuff and the $30 D&D Beyond leaks and stuff like that. None of that stuff was real. We have already, or my favorite one that was disproven within minutes was, I'm not even going to say the dude's name because I'm so pissed off at this person for just how much misinformation and outright lies he peddled to so many people, and actually grouped in some people I had the utmost respect for, and I've lost a lot of respect because they actually believe this was true. They confirmed through insider sources that Wizard of the Coast does not look at your feedback at all in any of the forms that you fill out. They don't look at anything at all in that. That's what this person confirmed. Again, I'm going to state this because this is actually my area of expertise. My particular degree is a Bachelor of Science in Business, and the subdivision of that is Marketing Management. And what marketing management means is I am qualified to work in a marketing position, and I am also trained in project management. One of the most widely used job fields for people with degrees in marketing is doing what's called market research. Marketing teams use it extensively, and they pay hundreds of millions of dollars for it. You want to know what marketing research is? Those surveys where it says strongly agree, strongly disagree, slightly agree, neutral. That is market research. Every single time you fill out a form that has that stuff, the reason they use that scale is because market research has found that seeing if someone agrees with something or disagrees with it is not that useful of data, but seeing exactly how much they agree or if they're neutral on things, that slight bit of gradient gives you significantly more data. Companies pay hundreds of millions of dollars for market research every year. Hasbro pays hundreds of millions of dollars for market research every year. You are giving them free market research. You are giving them something worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you think that they aren't using it? How moronic do you have to be? But we confirmed it. No, even let's pretend they're actually talking to someone that actually works for Wizards of the Coast, because someone that I admire greatly and I've lost a lot of respect for specifically said, "Well, we know that they work for them. If you know their name, you can confirm that they work somewhere." Not really. Because I can tell you my name, and I can tell you that I worked for a lot of different companies. I could tell you that I worked for Wizards of the Coast. You know what I could do? I could make a really cool LinkedIn page. LinkedIn. I don't know why I call it LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn. But I could make a really cool LinkedIn page, and I could give you this really cool... I could actually modify my current... I have I don't think you can search for it anymore because I don't work, and I unlisted it. I have a resume on LinkedIn. I used to use it when I was looking for management positions because LinkedIn was really, really common as a contact tool for management. Upper level management in general uses LinkedIn a lot. So I have a LinkedIn profile. I can put on there that I work for Wizards of the Coast. There's nothing they can do to prevent me from doing that. I can fake working for Wizards of the Coast as much as I want. And you could look for a company roster. Most companies do not list every single person that works for them. So, yes, they could be lying. But even let's assume they're not lying. Let's assume that these people found a way to confirm that these people worked without calling the company up. Because if you randomly call a company after a leak has happened and go, "Hey, does this person work for you?" That person is getting fired. Because they're gonna go, why do you want to know? Oh, I'm just I'm their second cousin, and they said they worked for you, and I just wanted to prove it. No, they're gonna fire that person. So no, you haven't. If you think you confirm that they worked for you just because you know their name, you don't know what you're talking about. Falsifying that stuff is massively easy. Con artists do all the time. But let's assume this person does actually work for the company. Just because they work for a company does not mean they're telling you the truth. And when they're telling you things that there is no way to verify, well, nobody looks at those things. And I think one of the terms that they use is they don't care what armchair DMs think. They're making the game, not you guys. It is such a blatant lie. Like, it was such an easily disproven lie. But they believed it, and they still do. They say, well, I don't understand how two different stories could be told and be vastly different, and both could be true. Because one of the people lied to you. And guess what? When proof is coming forward, anonymous source is trumped by person that actually reveals their name, actually shows that they worked for the company, and actually shows you that, hey, my job, I read over 500,000 of these things in the first year I was there. So yes, you have been lied to and you believed it. Congratulations, you're human, but don't dig your heels in on this. You got fooled. Accept the loss. Remember, I say this all the time. Failure is a fantastic teacher. Success is a horrible one. You have failed. You have failed miserably. Accept it and learn from it. This could be a fantastic learning experience for you. Or you can double down and go, well, I wasn't wrong. There's just some nuance to this. No, the guy lied to you. I don't know who it was. They lied to you. They either lied blatantly. They knew what they were saying was wrong and they said it anyway because they were mad. Or They're the kind of employee that I dealt with a ton, that thinks they are vastly more important to the company than they actually are, that thinks that they know everything about how the company works, and in all actuality, everything has been done at that company to keep them out of anything that they could break, because they are such a massive liability to the company that we would never let them know what in the world we're doing, because as soon as they find out, they will fuck it up. I had to make a prediction, I would say that your trusted source is a moron that probably won't have a job for too much longer, not because they leaked anything, but because they're massively bad at their job. You want to know how I know? Because they thought that hundreds of millions of dollars of market research was thrown away. Dear God, how stupid can you be? Oh, this upsets me. So, final thoughts. OGL 1.2 is out. It is the best version we are probably going to get. There's no royalties. There's no licensing. There is no no requirement to report what you're making. And they came up with an interesting way to prevent being sued by people going, well, I made that first. That I have no idea how well it's going to hold up in court. But it does exactly what that that thing that everyone was worried about, that you give us the irrevocable right to use this stuff. That is literally, like I said, it's in Twitch's TOS, it's in YouTube's TOS, it's on TikTok's TOS, which TikTok's TOS, read the TOS. TikTok's TOS is terrifying. If you thought the OGL 1.1 was bad, do not read TikTok's TOS. TikTok's TOS, they own you. Like it is like this far away from, if we need a kidney, we get to take yours. And then Twitter's TOS. All of them have the exact same language. None of them have ever used it in the way that it was described, because it's not legal. That's not how it works. It just prevents people from suing you because they had a similar idea. I think it's called parallel thinking. Yeah. Stop talking about that. Everything else is great. I love this. The VTT content for me, because they said at one point they said that they weren't going to touch VTT, and now they are, I think. So I'm not 100% certain on that. But again, it makes sense to me that they would do stuff for VTT. If anyone doesn't know what that is, virtual tabletops, things like Roll20. If you want to publish stuff on Roll20, that's not Creative Commons. You still have to use OGL. Anything else like live plays, not covered under OGL. That's under fan content policy, which nobody has a problem with. Everything, and they specifically made this new one irrevocable, and they said the only things that they can change is how you acknowledge that you're using the OGL content, and how they contact you if you're doing something wrong. Those are the only two things. And the absolute worst thing that they could do by changing those two things is they could say, we won't contact you. I don't think that would be legal, but theoretically the farthest worst, the worst thing is that they wouldn't have to contact you. And at that point, they would still have to contact you for a lawsuit if you had breached the terms of the contract. So I don't even think that's possible. But let's say they are able to go, well, we don't have to contact you until we're suing you. Maybe that's the worst thing. That still means as long as you're following the rules, you're perfectly fine. And then how you cite it. Again, they already have the worst version of that, is anything that uses the OGL has to have the entire OGL in it. I'm really not a fan of that. It is massive and it's an eyesore. And generally it takes up at least a page of your document. If you're printing something, adding a single page doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if you print, 100,000 books, that's 100,000 extra pages that you didn't have to pay for before. And it changes formatting and layout and all that stuff. Like, I'm not a huge fan of that. If they can change it to where you only have to put a little sticker on there, I think that's a significantly better way to do everything. So, we'll see. So yes, that's the OGL 1.2. If you guys have legitimate questions about this stuff, specifically as it relates to business law, stuff like that I can actually comment on, put them in the comments below. Answer as many as I have. Any of you guys that are coming here to say, oh, how does it feel to be this wrong? Just fuck off. I didn't reply to your comments last time because there was no point, and I'm not going to reply to them this time. You will get a little heart from me because it clears the comment out of my dashboard. I do that to all the comments, and the ones I try to reply to every comment. If all you get is a little heart, either that means I really had nothing else to add and I just liked what you said, or I couldn't really care less about you, and I'm just getting you off of my feed so I don't have to see the word derp every day when I check my analytics. So, but if you guys really have legitimate questions, please put them in the comments down below. If there's enough questions, I would be more than happy to not have a rant where I scream at people, but actually talk about real stuff. I would love that. If any actual, like, I hate using this term, but it fits. If any real D&D YouTubers, like Roll for Combat, if you guys are watching this, by the way, I lost a lot of respect for you guys, but if you guys want to have me on and want to have an actual conversation about this, instead of just going, lie, 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 I am 100% open to actually talking about this stuff. There's been so many lies and so much information and so much of people that think they know what they're talking about, but they don't, that it boggles my mind. And so many lies that were just so incredibly blatant. $30 a month D&D Beyond subscriptions. That is a 500% increase. In the business world, you never do a 500% increase unless you sell pharmaceuticals. The only reason they get away with that is people die without them. I kid you not, because pricing strategy is a marketing decision. It has nothing to do with anything else. Pricing is entirely under marketing. That is my specialty. That is what I have a degree in. I know a lot about marketing. Choosing your pricing and adjusting your pricing was like an entire, was the focus of like 3 different marketing courses I had. It is such an incredibly well studied and defined thing. Pricing strategy has been studied by psychologists, has been studied by economists. Everybody that is involved in business in any way, shape, or form have studied pricing strategy. It is a fascinating subject, but the idea that you're magically going to increase the cost of a non-essential product by 500 to 1,000% is mind-bogglingly stupid. There's no way any business professional in their right mind would ever do that unless you're taking something that you accidentally listed as a penny and selling it for $5. You cannot do a 500% price increase ever. It's not how it works. And AI DMs? How stupid can you... Oh man, this I've been really upset about this. So anyway, if there are any industry professionals, or if the people in the comments, if you guys want to try and tag and get me on one of these things, I am willing to talk to anybody that wants to have me on. Even the one person that I have the absolute, I won't even mention their name because of how much I really, really despise the content that they have made about this, the massive amounts of blatantly obvious lies they've put forward, and the fact that before this, a lot of their content was just bad content that didn't understand how D&D works. Even if that particular person contacts me and says, hey, I'd like to have you on so we can talk about this as rational human beings, I would be totally open to that. I am willing to talk to anybody that wants to talk about this, and I would love to. Any podcast that talks about this, any content creator, anyone that I know, anyone that I don't know, if you would like someone that has a degree in marketing, that has actually worked in business, that has actually worked with contracts and worked in marketing and actually done this stuff, please, please, you can comment here. I read every single comment that's on there. I'm on Twitter. I am at Trainer Jody on Twitter. My DMs are open. I read all my DMs. I go through all of my requested DMs. Yeah, those are the only 2 ways that I generally give it. I don't give out my email address or anything like that because that opens up doors I'm not ready to. But here and Twitter, I have Twitter on my phone. If you message me, I'm going to see it within a few days. If it's a message, if you just tweet at me first, Like you just tweet, "Hey, I sent you a message." I'll get that immediately. Every time you guys hear the whistle from A Link to the Past, Zelda: Link to the Past, my Twitter notification is the whistle from Zelda: Link to the Past that calls the bird. So every time you guys hear that on there, oh wait, no, that's that's my messages. My Twitter is the open a chest sound from A Link to the Past. I use a lot of Link to the Past sounds. So the ba da da da, that means I got a tweet. So if you send me a message and then just tweet, "Hey, sent you a message," that's all you have to do, and I will instantly be notified about it. And I will check because I don't get notifications for message requests from people I don't follow, but I do have a little thing that says it's there. It's just sometimes it takes me a day or two to actually look there for message requests. But if you tweet me and then send me a message, or send me a message and then tweet me, I will learn about it instantly. I will reply to you instantly. I'm very, very happy to talk about this stuff because my main goal in all of this has been to get rid of the lies, get rid of the disinformation, and actually have a real conversation about this. Because, again, there are aspects of the OGL 1.2 that I'm not particularly fond of. And guess what? None of that is going to change if we're constantly arguing about things that are imaginary. We don't need to argue about whether or not they should be saying that you can't use a rhinocorn to fly to the rhinocorn. That's hilarious. You can't use a rhinoceros to fly to the moon because it's not possible. So much of the arguments that have happened about this are just not possible, and are either bad faith arguments that are meant to assassinate Wizards of the Coast because of some perceived slight. Well, I don't like that it's the biggest tabletop, or I don't like that people don't like my particular RPG. Fantastic. Doesn't really matter. You're not winning any friends by bitching and moaning and trying to stop them from playing the game that they want to play. So yeah, I want to talk about this. I would love to just do a talk show round or a podcast circuit where I just go on every one of those and go, "Hey, guess what? I was the one that was right when all of you guys were spewing lies. You want to know how I knew I was right? You want to know how I got all of this so right so many times when you guys were talking about nonsense like $30 D&D Beyond subscriptions and Wizards of the Coast owning Tolkien and Star Wars? Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can prevent something like this happening again. Because the worst part about this is not what happened to Wizards of the Coast. You want to know something? Hasbro, 100% fine. They're not going to lose a night of sleep over this. Wizards of the Coast, perfectly fine. They're not going to lose $1 over this. All of those subscriptions that they lost, they're going to get all of them back and more. Nothing about this hurt Wizards of the Coast. You want to know the people that it hurt? The third-party publishers that you were trying to protect. The ones that had to cancel their Kickstarters. They lost out on shit tons of money because of you guys that may be ending their third-party publisher careers over this because you guys spoke lies and misinformation and threatened people. Those are the people that you hurt. YouTubers that got crucified because they're like, well, I'm not going to give into this because I don't know what's going on. And we're forced to make a statement, and now their statement is 100% wrong, and it has tarnished their credibility with their fan base. Yeah, those are the people that you hurt. Not Wizards of the Coast. Nothing you guys have done has done anything to Wizards of the Coast. You have only hurt the people you were attempting to protect, and they were never hurt by this in the first place. The only people that were ever going to be hurt by the 1.1 was Paizo, Kobold Press, people like that. Even Critical Role, if you were in this because you were afraid Critical Role was going away, forget it. Critical Role has a private contract with Wizards of the Coast. You want to know how I know that? Because Wizards of the Coast pays them every week. They sponsor Critical Role. Do you know what sponsoring means? Wizards of the Coast pays these guys. Do you really think they're going to turn around and go, well, now you have to pay us? Fuck no! The only people you hurt are small creators you were trying to protect. Congratulations. You are the monsters now. You are the ones that stopped third-party publishing. You're the ones that hurt RPG creators on YouTube. You are the ones that destroyed an industry. that is now going to take years to recover. Congratulations. You want to make sure it doesn't happen again? Have me on your podcast. Have me on your Twitch stream. I will talk exactly the right way to go about this stuff and the wrong way. And we can come up with some ways that this never happens again. Because this is unacceptable. 100% unacceptable. Never should have happened. One lying, in my opinion, just to cover me, one lying journalist coming up with bullshit and you all just eating it up like it's real. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And I will say this again because I want to emphasize this. Failure is a fantastic teacher if you let it. You failed miserably. You failed better than anyone I've ever seen, and I am an expert in fail. I could have majored in failure in college. I could have taught failure classes in college. You have put failure to shame. Congratulations. This is the best chance you are ever going to have a major improvement in your life by learning from this incredible failure. Do it. Don't dig your heels in. Don't try to say, well, I was kind of right. You failed, admit it, and learn from it. Failure is there to teach you. It's just sitting there going, seriously, dude, I'm right here. You want to get better? I can make you better. But if you ignore it and walk off the court, it's your own damn fault. You're never getting better. That's all for me today. See you guys probably on Monday with another episode of Designing New Dragons. Bye-bye.